So the first thing when you create your forms of PY in your user app, the first thing you need to put is this. Just this line from the Django import forms. When you create forms of PY, have you created the empty blank form? HTML. Any name, you can call it blank form. Any name. Yeah, we created that in templates. When you do that in templates, then you go into user app. You can open both of them side by side. So in templates, you already have forms. You have a blank form HTML. It's an empty file, nothing is inside. Can we name it blank forms.html? But it's empty, there's nothing inside. So you now open forms of PY in the user app. And then you import this. Okay? So this note, I will send it to you. So when you see this note, there are two ways of dealing with forms in the Django. The first method is called the model-based form. So in the model-based form, you use what they call database to generate your Django form. In that area, every other thing is automated once you use the model-based form. And we'll look at that later. We'll look at that shortly. But the basic formal way is you use the non-model-based form. Now, the non-model-based form uses this method of form to generate a form. So, we'll be looking at the two of them just so that you can have a little bit more exposure to those forms. So in this note I'll send you, just jump the first. You see I wrote it here. I said steps 1 to step 10 are quick project setup guide if you already have your project setup guide. So I took that. So I jumped all the steps. They are in steps, so you can easily follow it. How are you? How do you do? You came to see me, or you just came around? How is the web development project? You must have made a lot of money now. Well done. But you don't use Django. What is it? Okay, most of the things you use are done in this project. That's good. You're asking questions? we'll do that. That will be like towards when we choose. I want you all to grab this method and just know it. So that's why I'm starting everybody afresh. So there's no need for setup. So here, Princess, Rachel, let's focus on this method. We'll continue with that training after. But this one, everybody is on the same level, what I'm about to do. So let all of us grab this method. So let's jump the first. So when you get the note approaches the form creation from two different perspectives. So the first step, that first number, step 1 to 10, I wrote that because of the normal way we'll be using forms. But this method, this other one, is is different from the way many people use them. So I want you to get it. Alright, so to create a field in a form, so let's do it together. So we're here in a blank forms.py. Don't look at this form. This one, don't forget about it. So let me move down to the next level. Good. So everybody, this is how your page will be. Blank. But like me, I already imported this line. Import from the Django, import forms. So you two need to write that first line. You can ignore the second, third, fourth, third line for now. You can ignore them. We'll still deal with them later. In your user app, you create an empty form called form.py. Create a form.py in your user app. So when you create a form in your user.py, forms.py something, then you put that line from the Django.forms import forms. Sorry, from the Django import forms. That first line. That's all we need for now. That already imports all the things that we will need to generate our current file. So it's a class, and we're going to use this Django class to create our form. So to create your form, after importing that line, you're going to type class. Then you can call it blank form or blank form. You can name it blank form. Okay. So if you look at the steps, all we need to do is import the form. Look at this. All you need to do is forms.form. Okay, you know what? Don't call it blank form. I think it's confusing. You can't see it. It's not there. Okay, I'm blocking the screen. Okay, so all we need to let's even do something more practical. Let's call it user. Okay. User form. So let's call it user form. Maybe that's more practical. User form. F-O user form. So inside it,
so that you have to really the blank listing of them.
No. Just leave the XML file like that. It's blank. So this line, class user form. I want to put something inside this bracket. This thing, we imported forms, so we're going to say forms.form. Sorry, forms.form. Forms.form like this. So let me put two of them side by side.
So what's the way it works in the forms?
At the top, we did it at the top. We did it here.
So this is default, forms.forms.
This is what we imported. We imported these forms.
I don't have that class meta.
You don't have it.
Class meta.
Your class user. Don't ignore all these things you're saying. Just this is all you need. We'll deal with this later. We're coming here. But for now, I want you to see just the normal something, no additions. So this is class user form. That's the name of this form. Why we are passing into the class forms.form. So this is a Django Python class, but it's receiving something from an imported library. Forms.form. This is the library it's receiving. So it's going to use this library that it's receiving to do all the things it wants to do. So let's do it. So we're going to create a username. So we say, now remember, if you are not using Visual Studio Code, if you are using Sublime Text or Notepad++, you have to be careful of the indentation. So in my own case, my indentation is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That's my indentation. So I'm going to say user, I'm going to say first name is equal to,
About 7 is going backward.
so in this case, his first name is equal to, alright? So, the first thing we're going to put, now remember we imported forms.form. So we already have something available to us. So we're going to say forms dot. This is the default for all forms is char-filled by default. If you don't specify otherwise. Okay. So this bracket we're going to put. Now, in your normal HTML, you usually say a HTML element can have attributes. You remember that HTML element can have attributes. So it can be a bold tag, but it cannot have attributes inside. Like attributes can be maybe style, weight, height, and all those kind of things. Do we remember? Hello? Do you remember HTML elements? They can have attributes like a div element, for example. A table can have, div can have width, can have height, but we can also have style. You can add style to it. Those are attributes. In Django, this is how you do it. So remember that Django is going to generate that form. It's going to use inbuilt code. Instead of you typing those things yourself, Django will automatically generate it. So you have to now tell it how it's going to do that. So in this case, you say label. You all remember form label, the label element in a form. You remember it. So you say label is equal to first name. So this is the text that will appear. First name, enter first name. Let's put enter first name. Enter first name. Enter first name. Okay. So we've entered the first name, right?
Any form or forms?
It's forms. So the next thing is the last name. This was, let's enter a last name. Then the next, let's enter email.
log back.
That's all. So what we're designing is a comment posting platform. You can use it for a whole lot of other things, but let's use it to understand the basics first. So now we're done with this. Let's go into our template. Let's save. Do we all have this? Who has not finished that? Do you have this? Your first name, last name, email, and comment. In fact, I think this is a bit out of place. Maybe we should just do that. First name, last name is not necessary. You can just do enter your name. Can be first and last at the same place. Just say name. Name is okay. For now, name. Enter your name.
So that's leave it again.
Yeah, you can leave it if, I think it's enter your name. Your names. So you can put your first name, last name, all your names can enter here. And then your email. So I think this is better for now. Later we'll change.
What is the next thing?
This user form is a function, right?
This user form is a class. A class is like a function, except that a class can replicate itself. Like a function would have made it. A class is like the active function. So if you say student, class student, and you said function student. Function student is a series of codes that will do something. Class student is in Python, in programming generally, when you say something is a class, it means that I can now say class student. Then I can now say principal is equal to instance of class student. You get? So class student normally has certain things inside it, like functions, definitions, and things like that. And let's assume that class student, he has all the definitions are defined. I can now say principal is equal to new class student. Automatically, principal becomes a class. But you know, I didn't define anything in the principal. I just said new class student is equal to principal. So that new and class takes everything that is in my class and puts it to principal becomes an object of the class. The class is the blueprint.
So user forms are not flexible in this quality.
So now, user form is a class that is using another class. I imported from Django.forms. So that's a class. So this user form takes that class and
So that's the object.
now this user form is it's not an object, it's just taking resources from that class. Now you will see we're going to use this. We've not used it yet. We are just defining it. And all the things we are defining it with are being taken from a library, user forms. Alright.
For instance, can you say it like password equals form
No, we're coming there. Don't go to the other side yet. Let's just stay on this side. I just want to see I just want you to see how you create a form. Are we still in our user app? We're still in the user app. Hello. All right. Let's go into our views in the user app. So in this project user app, I will open my views. This is the views. So the important line in your views is this line. From .forms, import everything. From .forms, import everything. That's the only line you need for now. Of course, in your views, you already have import render. That's all. Every other thing there, you don't need to see it. If you see it in the recording, you even know what they're doing, so don't bother about them. We're going to talk about them later, but for now, the only important line is from .forms import star. What does that mean? Everything. So you don't have to start looking for everything. Okay, are we there? Are we there? So for now, once we've done this, we're now going to define a function. We're going to call that function user form. Okay? Any questions at this point? Any questions at this point? Any questions? No questions. Any questions for me? We're all on the same page, right? You have a user form.html or you have something.html. You have in your forms.py where you have defined this form, and now we're in the views.py where we want to define a function, right? Any question from the side? This side? All the things we just did. Any question at all? Even if you don't understand. You don't understand. So good. That's a question. It's a question. But the main question would have been, what don't you understand? So if you look at the whole process, which parts don't you understand?
The importing of that form.
Beautiful. So, good. Let's look at that. So, in this forms.py, so let's start basically. Do you have the HTML file in your template, the blank one, empty something? Good. Do you have user app? Now, inside user app, do you have forms.py? Good. So, in your forms.py, we have something at the top. The forms.py is an empty file. When we first started, nothing is inside. But we now did from the Django.forms import forms. Not this one, this one. So at the top here, we said from the Django import forms. Why are we importing forms? Because there is a class in the Django called forms. You can't just go and type form tags in the Django. It will be functionless. It won't operate, it won't work. You understand? So you have to, you can type it, but it won't work. That's what I'm trying to say. Now you can even type it and try to even submit it. It still won't work. Even if you go to the views and write all the codes that will receive those data, it still won't work. Because there is a process in the Django. So that's why I'm following this method. So you can see how to generate form in the Django. So this class that we imported, this line, this forms, it's a class inside the Django. What it does is to help us generate form elements. Do you understand? So the form elements that we imported, that this class, we're going to pass it to this form that we're creating. So that's why we did forms.form. There are many things inside it. We just took the form aspect only. There are many other things inside. There's forms.model, you know, there's widgets, there are many things, but we just want to use the form side alone. That's why we said in this place, we said forms.form. So from forms, we have imported forms, but the only part we are taking is the form part. There are many other parts that we're going to use, but later on we'll use them. But for now, we're just taking this part. So with this forms.form passed into these lines, it makes sense now. If you don't pass this into it, all these lines don't make sense. Because it's going to use what we gave it to generate these lines. Up to this point. Do you understand?
Yes, sir.
So after this point, the next thing we're going to do now, we're going to our views. In our views, we said import everything from forms. So that form we created has been imported already. So to now put the form into use, okay, to put it into use, we're going to take it and pass it to an HTML page. And this is how you do that. We will say define space user form user form. Okay, we need to pass requests into it. That's a standard because the Django is a web app, and the way the Django deals with embedded data, every time you deal with a web page, whether it's a blank one or it's one that is filled with many things, there is a whole lot of things that happens before you at the user side see that web file, even if it's ordinary HTML. So the way the Django intercepts those elements, those things, the way it intercepts it is the request. The request is a global variable. There's so much inside that request. So we are passing it. If you don't pass it, the Django won't use it. It's available there, but won't use it. So later you will see more things about it. So we say request. Do you understand? The request. So now go to the next line. If you're using Notepad like me, you must enter enough space.
This function you created, was it the same name with that class?
No. That's why I wanted to change it.
Okay.
So I've changed it to uform. In programming, with Python, those names, they are just names. The most important thing is what you are giving the function to use. That's what is important. So you can give it any name. I can call it Femi. But the reason why I follow a naming convention is because it allows you to know what you are doing. You can track what you are doing. For me, it's not a problem, but when I'm teaching, I try to follow a pattern so that people can see, this one calls this one. So, but literally, you don't need to name them the same thing. So that's why I'm naming this thing DF. If you read some online documentation, what they will use here is forms, and that's what everybody uses. You will see forms. But I changed it to DF. So here, what's the name of that our form? The name of our form is user form. Remember the capital. In fact, let me change it to, let me do a standard naming. This standard naming convention. Okay? This is standard naming convention. User form. So in the views, I will now say user form. Can you see? So the next thing we're going to do is return render bracket open bracket close requests comma. Now remember I said you create a blank form, a blank HTML page. So at this point you must get your, at this point you must put the HTML file that you named in there. So am I still blocking? No. So I'll say in this place userform.html. Alright, and then I need to pass something to it. Let's call it data. The reason why I use data is because data is a is a holistic name. With the word data, you know I'm passing something to the form. I could have said forms, I could have said content. Yeah, you put the name of the HTML that you created. Oh, thank you. So here we say, no, hold on. Is DATA, because data is a dictionary, and the dictionary is going to be like this. Watch the way I'm doing it. DF, DF, that's the way I'm doing it. Oh yeah, dictionary, it's a dictionary. So I've just sent tuple, it's dictionary. Yeah.
Why did you just render it directly from the software that I'm making it?
You mean here?
Yeah. No. It's not making data. It's not making it.
This one is passing it here.
No, it's not passing it here direct.
Yeah. Okay, you mean I should carry this and put it here?
No, like yes from there.
And I should just put it here?
Yes. Wow.
Well, let's look at what you said. Let's look at that statement and let's see it together. So here, this is a class that was imported in. So let's remove it. Let's take this user form and put it here. Now, when we take this user form and put it here, this function, this is a function. Actually, this is a function, render. We imported it here. It takes the following parameters. Number one, it takes the request parameter. It also takes this, which is a template for rendering. It can be any file, as long as the file can interpret what you are passing to it. Then it takes a dictionary.
Okay. That's the format.
So that's the syntax for this render function. So instead of carrying user, and if we put the user form here, if we took this dictionary and we put it there, yeah, it works. So this here is pointing to this user form. All this I did is just to make it clean. I've just written everything in one spot there. But with this now, at least you understand, it's clear a bit. It's a bit clear, yeah. Yeah. Is the syntax for what?
The syntax for the
No, they're in the dictionary. It takes 3 elements.
So far advanced at that.
Of course. Yeah. So listen to the question. What he's saying is this. This is what he's saying. He's saying, could we have done this? The glass is hot. Okay. This is what he's saying. He's saying that, could we have done this? Yes, we could have done that. We could have put, what's this? This is the dictionary. So we could have put this here. Okay? So the reason why I didn't put that there is because I'm teaching, so it's confusing. So I'm not just writing the code for myself, I'm teaching people. So I need people to know the logic. After a few whiles, you can eliminate the first 2 lines. You can just come here and do this. You can just do 1, 2. You can just do something like this. It may not make sense to somebody else, but you can just say X. You can just come in here and just put your form, user form. You can just do this. You don't need to. But there is an issue with this method, because since you are passing data to a template, this may not be the only data you are passing. There may be a whole lot of things. So I'm trying to show you segmented programming, how to make sure that your program follows a logic. Okay, we could push everything at that point, but at the end of the day, it kind of makes troubleshooting a bit difficult. So I learned segmented programming by force. It wasn't that I liked it. I just when you're doing presentation and the code is looking like you're not the one that wrote it, you have to learn to make the code to look like you wrote it, and the easiest way is to follow segmented process step by step. So I didn't just jump from here to here. I first stopped here, I pressed break. I took the form, I put it here, I pressed break. I came back here, I created dictionary, I pressed break. So you can see the way I'm passing it one by one, slowly, all the way until I get here. So it makes sense, I can read, I can see. And when there's trouble, I can easily find out where it is. So it's practice. So that's why I'm using it. But you can throw everything you want there at the same time. But I only advise you to do that after you are a bit competent with this scenario. And don't mind you, this one is not this is not where we're going. I'm just introducing you yet. When you reach the main place, you see that this method is a bit. This is just for you to see how the flow goes. So are we ready for the next level? Alright, good. Are we saved? Let me save. So this is our user form.html. For it to render, we need to create a URL. So we need to go into our URLs. In the URLs, edit. Just ignore everything you are seeing right now, and let's just create a simple URL that will help us to. So in our project, we already did the include thing, where we included this URL in the main URL, right? So to get this one, we'll just create a simple one. We'll just say part, okay? We'll just do something like this, part, and then we'll just come here and say user form, okay? User form, okay? And then we'll do comma, and then what's the name of the function that is going to handle this? The function, yeah. Wait first, everybody wait. Any question on this side so far? Good afternoon.
Okay, I've seen class. Can you bring it for me, please? Can you send us the bring it to me? Yeah? I want to know. HIT. Yes. Number 27. Number 26. Yes, I want to know. Coma. Is it coma? My glasses, I don't know.
Just give me So that's right. Okay, we're recording.
So I'm going to
Alright, so Classroom, just get the video for the others so that they can have access to it. This. So this is my views, this is my forms, this is my URL. My views is pointing to user form.html. So the best thing to do is to make sure that that form exists. So when you go into the templates, you get to create user form.html. So this is your blank form, right? Why don't we launch our server and see what that
for the URL? Let's see.
the URL. Here is the URL. In your project URL, where we included user app.url. Do you have it like this? So the namespace is the name the namespace is defined in this URL, so that word is here. But here you have this. So you put user app slash. It could be any string you want, but just to stay to. You're not practicing what we're doing. I told you that these parts that we're doing, all of us are new. Not all of us, everybody is new, and this one that we're doing.
Wait, sir, is this in your main URL?
This is the main URL.
Okay, not the user app.
No, this is the main URL. This is the main one that any visitor will get to first.
Yeah.
So inside here, I configured the user app. This could be any string you like. The most important thing is that it conforms to this URL. So anything I want to call will now be defined inside this URL. Not here. But for me to reach here, I will first type user app slash then whatever I define inside here. Do we get? So in this case, in the user app URL, this is what is inside. I have user form. This is what is inside user form. So the link to this page will actually be user app, this user app slash user form. That's the link.
Before I do the user app to the main URL.
The main URL.
Yes, I just added the slash user from display.
Because initially you have already configured it like that. That's what it should be. Because your user app, the main user app, in your main URL is empty string. That's why. So open your main URL. The main URL. Yeah, so easiest way to solve that problem. Where's your views? Let's do something let's duplicate and rename the whole duplicate the and rename that user index, second configuration. User space index. No, just user index. That this index was complaining about it, so let's name it. So here you have to rename one. Then that user app, put it in this place with this user app. Did you see it? complaining about user app URLs, which was in the company. So let's go to your URLs. Is your spelling correct? User index. Is it correct? Yeah, this user index, is it the same spelling we use? No. You have not done it now. Remove them. Remove that user index from there. Suppose you remove this function. It's called an image. No. This home page is a function. That's what we're naming user index. Slash. Okay, save this page. Let's go to the user app URLs now. User app URLs. Remove the slash. Uh-oh. No, not there. Is this the U form? Change this one.
Which test now?
The same user form. Change this one to user form. Small letters. Small letters. Is this a blank page created? The word doc on it.
It's one word, it's just refresh it.
This is the user index. User index is the one returning that. Is that what you're calling? What you're supposed to call? Let me see your URL, your main URL.
No basement.
Let me see your
Slash.
Let me see your uniform.
You do login.
This is your uniform function.
Maybe shout on me.
Yes, how you increase. Slash user form.
Does this exist? Empty definition.
I don't know you work in the answer. How you work
Let me
in
see
the
this. Let me see
Yeah, I'm
this.
going to ask you.
Source here.
This slash will be from user.
I told you, you have to slash that. Put your listing down to.
And then
Go back to the views. The views.
That's where it's all time.
Let's
They see like 10, but I'm going
So right now, this is what the
What is it? What is it?
So user form is what we're trying to get to. So user form is what slash user form.
Your DM, I said DM.
Yeah.
check and check.
I know my DM, I don't know what I'm talking about.
Okay.
See how it is. Okay. Oh, I just come on.
Mama said, you come to this way. When you be good, animal.
The clothes will come to the movies. I know you sent me, I need to answer a picture. They say I'm a mistake, you can put the slash, have you? Yeah, enter.
Response is
Go to your server.
Let me see wickedness.
Bracket. Currently
Let me make wickedness. Have you asked me anything?
I think I didn't know school. I don't need to ask school.
No, come on.
Go to your server.
I think you should have been
so
come myself, my class.
Yes. So we should chill, relax.
Maybe that I'm still not seeing you. Don't laugh with me. Don't laugh like school.
We all know why you based on that.
These are all things. Templates. These are the sell your market.
e-commerce website, you don't use that. You never have to start with the same code.
Go to your code. Make this capture later. I swear now, you are saying I swear. Yeah. Don't go on. Like, put yourself up. This is your server.
Command prompt.
Go to your notepad. Nice one. Come to your URL.
Then I was going to say, you know, say, I see that. It's funny.
Go to your server.
I'm not sure if you
Go to your main URL.
you know, see now.
Even the go to see now, right now.
Yeah.
Even the go to see now.
You don't have to say something, you don't forget to say something. It's most.
Yeah, let's go.
I don't know this.
Your browser. No, yeah. Go to the reviews. You see, you don't fuck up on our side. User form. It's not user form. Type blank form. Blank form. Yeah, then the form.
I just say, people follow exactly my issue.
Idiot,
No man, so man, the first one we do for this other one. Everybody call me idiot.
This was
the part that is the
go to your code.
okay, the part that should be fair. Let's see what it is.
Finish. You know the focus. You know, I don't know what's happening.
If I used to say, hey, not so much man.
These are the first way we do it. Got
It was no concern. I don't know. When it's making, I don't know if it's concern you are too.
not anybody who has a dream.
You need to tell me that we can run.
Blank phone will create to come up with a and it will tell you for
See, your biggest intuition. So, black women design, public and happiness. Most of the side of the said, see us all day. I need to put your ability in the food. So then you can buy.
I don't know what you talk about. I don't know what
You don't go here and tell them, I'll tell you to put on food. What I mean, the way we laugh, you will see that you go to the other big. As you get up and you say you want to see.
now just short cuts.
What do you short cut? Just waiting.
You will have to look down.
Come on, you have that big.
I don't think
You
you
better
better.
They touch me at all. Your life.
You see your brother.
Yes, I love the design of
I
things.
mean, the form of your.
Well, I don't know when I got started with this stuff. I don't use this already do something.
So as a studio, I will if I don't listen to what if you will bring it what's your problem? I will check your distance. I like to go
You don't know what this is.
I know that you do it, I show you that. That's what I'm saying also.
Yeah, Yeah, just not show. Not show. But my own is 69 before.
I want to
I
try
got
that.
probably like this in my
But I want to try that.
nice I'm nice for me.
Anytime. I say so. I'm going to try that. I'm going to try that.
Where's the phone?
Everybody says you're so far.
Police station and so on.
You get too many things. You get too many things.
I talk to her, I don't be that time.
Go.
Let's not get too many people because now we still with English after just like Simon said. I mean, man,
Get out.
Really?
You can't, sorry. I'll take your phone. I'll not. Stop now, far. Are you serious?
Yes, sir.
It's a phone that's showing black. It's black.
Alright, now you said black is game. Like this. After the slash user and slash user. So user. That's the user. Just see all the
On s'est vu, c'est le fait de l'autre. Ok. Tu vas avoir ça. You can check it out. Are you gone? Ah! Reflex. Get out. Small.
I'm going to do that for my shot. You see this man, they have to work that. This will stop. This will stop and we carry it over like somebody else. Okay? It's a real very some people there never
with that stuff. Yes, it's like you are playing for the same thing. Now this guy like this. Yeah, it's like I've been getting issue before. For one full month, I'm 51 person.
That's how we do it. So now what's the duration for your own? Have it? Which is have it? Which of them that another one? I mean, I would that is without that's the same setting.
Yes.
I mean, it's the same setting. I think like this, I mean, no sense. Let me talk about the kind of the game.
What this again? I don't want to say like
I don't know this.
yeah, you told me before.
I'm not
Wow, you don't live now.
you give me my money. But I don't be that look back or more kill myself. People like I don't know if there's anything happening, no basic, black rubbish. I don't know why.
Oh, fuck.
If they use the iPhone and not get it, it's
I never learned the kids. You cannot once. For now, let's start with you. I don't do the
because of
no, so I don't know that.
this person.
On my phone, on my phone.
Okay, we can do that for yourself.
I think my phone sister.
Bring your phone and
I don't see my
And you have to hear that guy is shout when he talks. I need to hear that. Bring your food, show me.
I eat something. I don't eat something.
Because of the they eat rice. They eat rice. They do.
Very
It's
charity.
a shy food, but I suppose I didn't think I'll make our phone. As if they did our
What is getting at the bar? They go into the next one.
You don't lose, you are being blind now.
Yeah. Very stupid party. Go to let's make nothing.
Taking that.
They refuse now.
Really? So now this is the thing on the phone.
Like what?
Wait, they don't see your rank. Actually, almost all the way they play this. Have you
You go over there,
okay. I've seen that based on rank very quickly.
Oh, they give me one everything. This is the one cry. Because they give me one cry again.
Okay, your team.
I swear.
I'm really playing.
It's better.
I'm going to smash it. I'm going to say it through and I will go do it. power.
Ooh.
And you see, that's your new form. Most of us people have been starting.
I'm not getting this sound.
This new form.
Fuck. That was so good. What am I sure to count?
You might be the one that's great. I'm not making it. You don't want to say in your mind. Like, say the promise of the king. Mining.
I don't know.
To correct the way they see this will come out.
Very common.
They never go from, never did for this.
Okay.
Never did for binary, they also go from.
The sound really confusing. This is very pronunciation and the sound really like it come from my side, but I'm my side.
Name error on which file is beginning the name error. Where is the name error?
I'm the sound on one side, like, but you know what I mean? Your team expect you
are referencing what is the name of the function in the views? That's the name that
but like use it for
what's the name?
I think they say they don't get
What's the name of the views? See the spelling, and the spelling of what you wrote is different. The spelling
this is like the hand the way you carry. See they shoot the hand where you see the guy before you do that. And the as I say, you do like this for your game.
no, this is
They shoot you one.
What's the name?
once you don't go, don't do.
I like the that was like the story we tell things about the when they walk in and if they walk in they tell you something when they walk in when they put that car
So you don't want to
Many people you know it's a lot of brand. This I will do.
You see everybody has a
What will start about
This is exactly how it should now, we from there, but this is our naming convention, which I apply here.
wrong name. That's the one thing you should put your views.
Thank you.
This is the viewers. This user form is not essential. Let me see that form. The name is not user form.
See,
Are you sure this is
I meant for that time.
I don't plan, second I plan,
But we later come here.
no, I did come on. I don't know what kind of stupid of this again.
So no. The reason why you are getting that error.
But this is last time. See, maybe I will do it.
Did you say this your forms? What do you
Let me see. One part, focus party.
So you have to I will call you at an example.
Who is and you have your own team. I say you own that time. This one I know.
No, but I want to follow Jack.
Who is the join?
Yes, I don't complain.
Even I will
So I think it's something that's not easy. You can change the
Why you change? But you got to change your name anyhow.
Once you tackle and you use your counter and shit like that. 1 5 days you can change that.
That's the CC is a
And for Facebook, I put something wrong. You can't say where I want to go. Just know
Who said the play?
she did play on 5 years.
She's
I guess
Sabi.
if you can say.
Yes, Sabi.
Yes, now I used to. I play like 3 matches. Be like 4 matches, sure. I lose.
You look up.
Out of 6 matches, I lose just 1.
And you see this now. Which means Sabi party.
That's the name of the form.
my God. Bastard. Dog. Bastard food dog.
They shoot it.
Oh, God, this guy is so
Oh, of course, definitely this will happen. Of course, this will happen. No, the reason why this is happening is because yes, this is a form. You already defined it. So you can't call it like this. So it's assuming you are calling the class. Of course, that's normal. That's what we call the error right there. When you import, hello guys. Wow, not a small thing. Let's look at the board. You have to, when you import a form, so only one person is seeing the form right now. So for the rest of the class, let's do the form. This is how the form looks like. Are you ready? So to view the form, you simply do these two brackets, and then you say, now the name I'm going to type is the same name that I passed, df dot as underscore table. You can use this method, and then you can also use this method. Okay, just save this and check out what you have first. Have you typed it? This is what you should type. Let me show you. Have you all typed this? So all that just happened is this. The form you made was passed to the HTML file as an object, and then this code simply renders the form. So did you see a form that looks like your form? So this is one way to render the form. Okay? Another way you could have rendered the form is to say as what? P, like this. You can use the as P option. This will put the form element in paragraphs. Okay? That's the second way. So you notice that the only things you are seeing are the form fields that you defined. The only thing you'll be seeing are the form fields that you defined, right? Okay. The last method is you can say UL. You can use the UL method like this, and it will what? Yay! All the while I was troubleshooting for you, it was recorded. So this file is going to be very heavy. Did you guys do editing? Video editing? Who did video editing?
You can do it, but the time, because that's now.
Who can do it?